Hi everybody, welcome to the Business Spotlight. I'm Adam Sterling. I'm here at Allegria Village with the Sales and Marketing Department. I've been here a number of years. I'm actually been on the property we've been around about the same. You've been in practice around 27 years or so?
That's about right,
David?
27, 29.
Yeah,
range.
29?
Yeah.
Okay, I think I'm at 27 or 29. I can't remember which it is anymore. Yeah, so been around a while in this show. Let me, David, take a minute. I always try to remind folks what the show is because it's just a monthly show. There may be a gap and there may be people that have moved in. This is a wonderful show to share with you some of the local community resources. Sometimes that's business people, sometimes it's agencies or information or programming from the greater community that I've been fortunate enough to come across in my work, traditionally out in the community, sometimes through residents here, and David happens to be, I think, that instance where I've met David a number of years ago. He's worked with many residents. Many of you might, if you are observing and looking around, recognize David because he's here quite a bit. He actually has quite a number of clients who live here, and that always speaks incredibly highly about someone that I would feel comfortable referring, and it gives you some peace of mind that he's been serving people here at the community for a long time, and he has many clients who live here. So David is an attorney. His focus is on estate planning. His expertise is in that area. And as I said, I've talked to a number of his clients who live here, and they all love him very much. They appreciate him very much. I've talked to him many times. I've seen his presentations. They're fantastic. Some of the best presentations I think I've ever seen. Like they're really informative and engaging. But they keep your attention along the way, which isn't always easy, especially when you're talking about the law.
Right.
But you do a really nice job of providing a lot of information. It's digestible. It's entertaining in a way as well. You have a way of kind of keeping some levity to things as well. So I say that because we're going to talk a little bit about estate planning. We're going to conclude by inviting you to come to a presentation that David is going to provide here at the community just for the residents. And that's going to be on Tuesday, September 24th in the chapel at 1 p.m. We'll talk about that again at the end. But also know that this program will appear on Odyssey. So in addition to the schedule that you have for the showings this week that you're watching it, it is also on Odyssey, which is our intranet.
Oh, great.
And so the resident portal, you can go there and you can find the Business Spotlight show. You'll find David's contact information, a little bit more about his services, and you'll find a link to the show so that you can watch it there. If we spark something today and you want to go back and revisit it, you'll be able to find it there. So with that, I just want to say, David, thanks for coming in today. Welcome to the village, or you could give a tour. You give a better tour than I can of the village.
I still get lost once in a while.
Do you? I'm surprised.
But because it's a great facility with a lot of different hallways and so forth.
It is.
Ones that I've really enjoyed being with many residents that I consider to be friends, many that have been clients and friends. And I got to tell you, it's a wonderful place, Adam, a place that really people got to be proud of, people got to be comfortable and happy with. And it's been a real honor and a privilege for me to know so many that have been here at Allegria Village as well.
That's nice. Well, thank you. It's mutual, and I agree. It is a special place, and you're a wonderful asset to people. Your services. So this wouldn't be the first time that we've had an elder law or estate planning attorney on, but each person brings a really unique gift. And like I said, I think David's really highly focused on estate planning. He has broad knowledge across all areas. But I think that as it has to do with the consequences of estate planning, changes to the law, the importance of changes to your estate plan over time, the importance of estate plan, I'm making the assumption everybody has one. Almost everybody needs one. So listen today. We'll share a little bit of information about that topic in particular, and then do come to the program in September on Tuesday, September 24th. And you'll get a really great presentation, and there'll be questions and answers, an opportunity to meet David and learn quite a bit more. But if we can, let me just start by asking kind of some basic questions. Can you tell us kind of the basics of what is estate planning?
Absolutely. And Adam, you made a very good point that most of us either have one or whether we actually know it or not. And what I
That's a
mean
good
by
way of
that
putting it. I like it.
is that here we are, many of us may have planned a will, a trust, some powers of attorney, those kind of things. But at the same time, if we haven't, the state of Michigan has a plan for you, whether you know it or not, and whether you like it or not. And so it's a matter of taking control. When we talk about an estate plan, we're talking about not only those assets that you might be passing to your loved ones through a will or through a trust, but also those things that you can do for yourself in the process of estate planning. That's through powers of attorney, because we can prevent ourselves from going to probate court and our lives going to probate court if we handle things correctly. While we're living, a financial power of attorney or a healthcare power of attorney, rather than at probate court, a conservatorship, a guardianship. Because if we don't have one, and people need to act on our behalves, then that's where we run into probate court. Same thing after we pass away. A will get us to probate court, but at least we establish the rules of the game as to what happens. Whereas a trust is one that basically we're trying to stay outside of probate court, and we're trying to basically identify what we want done at home through our loved ones, for our loved ones, and in a manner that we can handle things appropriately. So there are kind of the things that we can do for ourselves and that we can also do for others after us as well.
That's nice.
Yeah.
So it's really providing direction as it pertains if you're living and you need others to make decisions. You provided some powers
Yes.
for that. And then if you passed away, direction so that the state's not the one necessarily making all the decisions for you.
That's
Guessing
right.
what your intentions were. Oh, that's good.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people can relate to it. I will say there's probably some folks who haven't done an estate plan, haven't done a will or a power of attorney, whether it's financial or for healthcare. This is a great opportunity. It's not uncommon for many of us to put it off and to keep thinking, I'll get to that. It's really critical if you want the directions that you want to provide directions versus having someone else make those for healthcare decisions, let alone financial, let alone if you have an estate or assets that you're going to want to direct towards someone specifically. You don't want to lose, you don't want to have expenses associated with that, that the state will have for you in getting that, as well as just the arbitrariness of their best intentions, but they could not possibly be going to where you'd intended. So
That's right, Adam.
yeah, I just kind of encourage you. Again, I'm sure a lot of people have it, and so, but for those who don't, this is your really big opportunity to take advantage. And if you do, we'll certainly talk about the fact that it's something you need to look at as well. You can't just put it away and never revisit it, because there are aspects of it that change or need to be changed.
Absolutely.
But I'm getting ahead of you.
That's okay.
Well, maybe I'm not. Hey, it
You're
actually
ready, we're right in line here. We're
right in
absolutely
line
right
and
in line.
didn't even know.
Absolutely.
So updating your estate plan. Can you tell us
Yeah.
a little bit about that and, kind of actually where I was going there without even knowing it?
Absolutely, Adam, and that's good that you're in sync with that from the standpoint of you look at these estate plans that maybe we have or haven't, as you mentioned before, prepared. Those people who have prepared their estate plans, I've seen all too often, Adam, a situation where I meet with a client for the first time, and I say, do you have an estate plan? Oh, yeah, I think, maybe 10, 20 years ago, my spouse and I created a plan when our kids were young, or, maybe we did after retirement or something like that, and, we put it aside, and it's all set.
It is all set, right?
That's a real problem. It's not all set at all, Adam. And that's where the problem arises. When people say, I think it's set, I think it's set, it's all there, but the problem is, things happen.
Yeah.
Over the course of time, it's really important for us to actually look at your estate plan each year. From this standpoint, you've got about 5 things generally that I'd recommend that you kind of cover when you're looking at your estate plan. Of course, we think of the wills and the trusts, we think of gifts and our beneficiaries.
Okay.
That's one important area, and I'll get into that in a little bit. We think of maybe over the course of a year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever it might be, our priorities and our lives change, and we need to account for those. Otherwise, We have what we planned 5, 10, 20 years ago, and that may not be exactly what we're looking for because our lives have changed. Our priorities have changed in the process. Another one is if you have a trust, and my clients know it, some of you who are perhaps watching our video here as well, and that is if you have a trust, it's nothing but a stack of documents unless you fund it, making sure that it's properly in place. So another thing, we want to make sure that if you have a trust, are you bypassing probate court? Another one is basically if you don't have a trust, and we talked about this before, you have a will, at least with the will, you're setting forth the guidelines, the rules once you get to probate court. But do you really want to go to probate court? If you have a will or you don't have a trust of any kind, you don't have a will of any kind, you're going to probate court. If you have a trust is designed to avoid probate court. So again, that's a fourth area. Nice. Think about that as you're reviewing your plan. And then the fifth one is one that you should really be kind of checking in with an attorney. If you have an ongoing relationship with your attorney, go speak with your attorney. Make sure that she or he is keeping you up to date with relation to what plans you have. Of course, I'm always happy to go ahead and provide people with details and updates as to what occurs and what has occurred in the law and what might be coming or looming in the future with relation to our estate plans and the law. So those are the 5 areas that we really need to check in on. About once a year is a fair approach to take.
That's fantastic. You know, it's interesting. I think everybody, there are several things there you said that everybody can relate to, but one thing that none of us are able to stay conversant in is the law. I mean, it's just, we don't even hear about it in most cases. It's nuanced, plus when it comes to estate planning, I don't think it would necessarily get the publicity that some of the laws that we probably are more likely to hear about in the media. So there are changes and they affect our plan regardless of anything we've done.
Absolutely.
So just having the opportunity to revisit that and be aware is great. That's really nice. And I see you meet with your folks on a regular basis, so they're aware, and I'm sure they're getting their plans tweaked a little bit based on what's happening in the law as well as in their own life circumstances. So
yeah, and you mentioned those life circumstances. You know, I mean, that's one where basically, as you look at your plan and you consider things such as I mentioned before, looking at your beneficiaries. Are they still the same individuals that you planned to provide to years ago? Are they still the same ones? Now, for some, that's very much the same thing. My spouse, my children, other close loved ones, those individuals. However, when a spouse passes, what happens? What do we do with their plan at that point? When we have beneficiaries that come and go in our lives, whether they're loved ones related or not, are we providing in the amounts we wish to provide to them? Think of it kind of as, you know, if you will, a full 100% pie. How are you dividing that pie apart, essentially is what we're looking at. So in that context, is that amount right for each individual that you wish to provide to? And at the right ages. So many people think about, well, I'm going to provide to my child, my grandchild, maybe great-grandchild, and I'll just provide it at the time that I pass away. That's not a good situation, Adam, because in that situation, first of all, the law recognizes it. The law says that our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren cannot receive money until they're 18 years old. Think about the money that you have there. It's the money that we're living on each day that we basically have, and sometimes it's a lifetime's earnings. It may be a lifetime earnings from our investments.
Right.
It may come out of insurance policies and so forth. Those things that we actually pay on, right, Adam?
Yeah.
We're paying those basically on a yearly basis and so forth.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything to us now, but when we pass away, those life insurance policies balloon to the face value, the so-called death benefit. Are our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren prepared? Are they prepared to handle that amount of money? So that's the thing that we look at. Are they providing at the right ages? Otherwise, we can basically break it up time-wise. And of course, we always look at charities too. We may give on a yearly basis to charities that we love and are important to ourselves. But at the same time, it's important to keep in mind, you know, that maybe new ones have come in, and maybe those are ones that we want to provide to as well. So that's a certain area that we kind of look at as we're dealing with, life's changes and our
Yeah.
reviews.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. And there's I don't go off script here a little bit. The tax consequences of your giving and when you give, and trying to avail yourself of the most value from your assets, even in gifting, is probably important. So that planning makes sense, so that if your intention is to be gifting, that you're gifting as much of it as possible without necessarily Uncle Sam's portion being as great as it has to be, depending on some
Absolutely.
timing. So
Absolutely. And as we
Yeah.
look at that, Adam, that's a situation where you have taxes that we think of that we pay every single year in our income taxes. One thing that we don't want to do is have to pay any unnecessary taxes
Yeah.
after we pass away. So one way that I would suggest that is taking a look at perhaps your IRAs. Look at those tax-deferred assets.
Yeah.
The tax-deferred assets will come to get us. Eventually,
Right.
Uncle Sam will come knocking on our door.
right.
But when we look at charities, and if we were to go ahead and provide that IRA at the time we pass away to a charity, now suddenly it's not going to be taxed necessarily at that point in time.
Okay.
So a good point along those lines, and
Yeah.
one that we should always be aware of when we look at our assets and we look at what we have. The IRAs are something that might be taxed regardless. Otherwise, we have changing estate plan laws and estate tax exemptions and so forth that we can get into more detail
Nice.
as well.
Well, that's where I think you're nuanced in the individual meetings really kind of comes in. People can save a lot of money over time.
Indeed.
In fact, by having your services, there's no doubt
Yes.
about it. We're not going to have that capacity on our own to stay up to date on that information, let alone implement it. So,
Sure.
you need a trusted resource, someone who focuses in this field. So that's I do know there's people here that they plan for that. They go through the same counsel. Some of them are your clients, others live here. But if you haven't, and you do have assets, you do have an estate, it's definitely something to plan for. If you haven't, it's you want to see it go where you want it to go, and minimize the tax consequences along that way. So
That's right.
Estate planning attorney is vital to that. So you referred to considering whether your priorities have changed. What do you mean by that?
Well, priorities are a situation where we look at what happened in the past that might affect us.
Okay.
We might have changes in our lifetimes.
Yeah.
Changes that might include anything from marriages and divorces. It might include births or deaths. And in each circumstance, we need to reassess. Hey, are the people that we still want to go ahead and provide not only assets to and beneficiaries, but also in the context of those people we're relying on to be our fiduciaries. Now, what I mean by fiduciaries is if you go through each area, you look in the will, you have a personal representative. The trust, you have trustees. But let's look at while we're living as well. The agents under our financial powers of attorney, the patient advocates in our healthcare powers of attorney. These are the people that so long as they're living, so long as they're able, and so long as they're willing, they can do these things. But if not, it goes back to the point that we were mentioning a moment ago, Adam, and that is we go to probate court.
Yeah.
Because maybe sadly, those individuals that we named in our financial or healthcare powers of attorney are no longer living, willing, or able to go ahead and serve in that context.
Yeah.
What do? Now we're going to probate court.
Yeah.
Time waste, money waste, stress, etc.
Yeah.
That we can take care of now as opposed to later. So that's the kind of thing that we do. We watch out for those changes in life and our
Yeah.
lifetimes.
That's nice, because that definitely happens, and you're right. I think we think about ourselves, but it's we forget in these documents that we're appointing people to have authority on our behalf, whether living or after we pass away, and their circumstances change a lot. And I think most people in the situation of considering their estate and they're of an upper age. And so the reality is that a lot of times they're looking at adult children or adult family members, and those family members are probably about the time when you made your estate plans now, but they're encountering perhaps disease, divorce, a variety of situations, which may not make it tenable for them to be able to do what you expected 20 years ago when you first wrote your plan or made your designations. And it's very easy to kind of forget about that, or again, put that off to the side but you're burdening someone later who's really not going to be able to execute on your behalf. And it's a time to really reassess that. On occasion, you need a couple milestones to reassess that and redo your information, at least your designations. It's going to make sure that you're fair to the people that you're designating, as well as having your intentions met. These are just things I know they get away from us.
Yeah.
They get away from all of us. It's
Yeah.
just, it happens. We get busy, and it's so easy to do.
Yes,
So,
and
I
as
give
you
you
say,
credit.
Adam, we think about those people who might be our loved ones
Yeah.
that we have that are going through, like you said, maybe it's a divorce or maybe it's a difficult time in life, one way or the other. We want to support them, we want to provide for them, and our thoughts might be directly on them, and it should be. But take a breather for a moment and make sure that you take a look at how does that affect your life, your plan. And that's an excellent point that you mentioned there, Adam. Well said.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
You also identified another important issue in, am I on the right page?
Yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
thanks. You also identified another important issue, ensuring your possessions bypass probate court.
Yeah.
So how do you do that?
Okay. Keep in mind that if you have a trust, it's designed to bypass probate court.
Right.
There are two exceptions where assets should not be associated or what we call funded in the trust. And that would be IRAs and annuities. There, I'm recommending to our viewers, make sure that you look at those, look at the beneficiary designations. Often people might not have it with their papers. They might need to call back to whatever company it is and say, hey, look, I need to know who my beneficiaries are. If it's somebody who's advanced in years and they've lost their spouse, sometimes, sadly I found this, sometimes I find people coming to me for the first time and they say, oh, my spouse passed away. I said, well, who's the secondary beneficiary? Well, when the agent sold me the policy or sold me this or that, I didn't put any in. That asset is going to probate court. And there's the problem. So that's why we need to make sure that with the exception of the IRAs and of the annuities, which we should, again, make sure are properly set up with living beneficiaries that we still want to give to. You look at the others. You look at, is there a real estate interest? Is that real estate interest tied in with the trust? Bank accounts. Are the bank accounts titled in the name of the trust, or at least the beneficiary is the trust? You look at investments, the same kind of approach, whether they're mutual funds or stocks or whatever they might be. Again, are they titled appropriately in the name of the trust? Life insurance, we just mentioned a moment ago, same idea. If you have life insurance, it should be titled to the trust first, or should we say not titled, but the beneficiary should be the trust. And then any kind of business interest as well, whatever those might be. And again, always remembering that the key thing is avoiding the issues that might come up with higher taxes on IRAs and annuities. Quick point on that is that with an IRA and annuity, it gets taxed to the beneficiary regardless.
Okay.
So if the beneficiary, again, we talked about charities are great for that, but if you're providing within your family, it's better, even if you have a trust, to name an individual as opposed to the trust as the beneficiary of the IRA, of the annuity, those two, because individuals have much better tax rates than what trusts do. And those are the only two areas where trusts get taxed.
Yeah.
The other ones, real estate, bank accounts, investments, life insurance, all those should be in the trust.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Did not know that.
Yeah. Got to keep that in mind. as we
Yeah,
go
no,
through.
that's important.
Yeah.
I'm all about it. I'm all about avoiding taxes. I mean, paying
Indeed.
the fair tax, right? Yeah, there
Exactly.
you go.
We don't want to get taxed a second time.
Yeah,
We don't want to get
absolutely.
taxed at a higher rate than it's necessary.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. You mentioned that we may wish to consider whether the viewers believe now is the time to create a trust. How would you, or they may wish to consider if now is the time to create a trust?
Indeed. And Adam, this is something that we'll get into more detail
Okay.
on September 24th, but I can tell you that that's where the fights begin. That's where you take, whether it's your wallet, your purse, your checkbook, those things that are personal to ourselves.
Yeah.
Suddenly they're opened up in the public, in the probate court after we pass away. Not necessarily an appealing thing, because that's something that's been private appropriately to ourselves. An issue also is with relation to protecting those that we love in trust. So maybe it's a matter of somebody who can't handle those funds, can't handle the money that's involved here.
Okay.
And in that situation, it's better to go ahead and make sure that we set up a trust that can handle those assets for them over the course of time, providing additional peace of mind to ourselves, security for those that we're providing to.
Okay.
Yeah, those are a couple of them.
Okay, that's good, and I know there's more.
Yeah.
So, but that's good. I actually just even hearing the privacy of the not the public setting of a probate court per chance is as a reason. It's interesting, yeah. And there's a variety, and certainly the individuals who perhaps you want to take care of or their capacity. Interesting. Sure. Yeah. Thank you. You raised the point that changes in the law may affect their estate plans. Are there any changes folks listening right now should be aware of?
Yeah, I want to list three briefly before we have to wrap it up today.
Yeah.
But the three that I will talk about in more detail during the course of, again, our September 24th discussion are annual gifting, number one, lifetime gifting, number two, and what happened with relation to how we can stretch out our IRAs and so forth. Is that still possible? And unless you're in a very limited classification, it's not still possible. Let me go back to annual gifting. Annual gifting is a great way that we can give up now to $18,000 per individual per year. We could give 100 people that amount. We can give 2 people, no people, whatever it might be. We can give that amount of money, and it helps eliminate what might be a higher estate that we're trying to make sure doesn't get taxed after we pass away. A second one is with relation to lifetime gifting. This will get into more detail, but I can tell you that the estate and gift tax exemption is one that is set to sunset from a higher level to a lower level. Right now, I wish any of us had it, $13.61 million is what we can give after we pass away. In other words, we're in good shape.
All right. We're
no
covered. Taxes
there, except for, again, the IRAs and the annuities.
Okay.
Right? It's going to go up to 14 in 2025, and then we have 2026. On December 31st of 2025, it sunsets to half that amount. So that's an important thing. And then finally, with relation to the Secure Act, we used to have essentially the IRA stretches. So we, during the course of our lifetimes, as we're in our 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and into our 90s, are continuing to accumulate interest and amounts and so forth in these IRAs and so forth. The issue there is that when we passed away, we could set it up in a stretch IRA trust. That meant that our children, or whomever we provided to, could use it for the rest of their lifetime, year after year after year after year. Well, in response to the one I just mentioned a moment ago with relation to high estate and gift tax exemptions, Congress in 2020 passed the Secure Act in 2019. It went into effect in 2020. And at that point, it said, nope, you got 10 years to go ahead and receive all the funds that are in there. Why? Because the taxes come out of that.
Absolutely.
And the tax man gets his or her share.
Yeah.
So that's where we're looking at that in more detail during the course of that upcoming seminar and discussion.
Excellent. Well, that's going to be a great session. Thank you.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, a lot of information. And David will go in more detail and slower and with examples and be able to answer questions for you as a group and individually on that day. I know he's setting a little time aside at the end as well for individual questions too. So if you have questions related to estate planning, your estate, anything in that area, your powers of attorney, wills, whatever it might be, definitely come. It's going to be Tuesday, September 24th at 1 o'clock in the chapel. Please do attend. We rarely get the opportunity for someone with this much expertise and knowledge to be available to everyone and to you individually in a public space. So take advantage of it if you're looking for a trusted resource and you want to increase your current knowledge about some of these important topics. So with that, David, thank you so much for coming in today, taking time out of your schedule. It's really appreciated. We value your time, and thank you for coming.
Thank you, Adam. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you, to speak with your viewers and your residents here.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And you all remember you can find this information again on the Odyssey portal under the Business Spotlight page. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you out and about.